doing that in the background because you can't just do it from one camera, of course. Hello, everybody. Hi, Sarah. And I am back for part 2 of what I'm hoping will be and will be a 3-part installment. Hi, Karen. Of what I focus on and what I encourage you to have a think about or to learn from or to take inspiration from when it comes to increasing your income. I mentioned in the first part of this video, which I recorded earlier this week, that I've been reading this book, and I feel like I should be an affiliate for her because I feel like everyone that I have talked to about it in the direct messages has now bought a copy. It's Think Like a Breadwinner by Jennifer Barrett, and it's really just got me thinking about that idea of how most of the people I work with want to be self-sufficient, earn their own income, not be reliant on partners, and that we struggle to do that and why we struggle to do that. And so the first part of this video series, I talked about what took me from zero hobby, having a blog, having a few skills, not earning any money, normally being used to PAYE income, to 50k a year income, which tends to be what people tell me they would like, I think, as a bare minimum, usually for them, those kind of 3, 4, 5k consistent months, and what I focus on. So if that is you and you're at the kind of hobby, small amount of money phase, and you want to know what to focus on to get you from 0 to 50, go back and watch that video. What I am going to try and focus on today is going through the same criteria, my same 5 pillars, but looking at what I was focusing on to move me from around 50k a year to 100k a year. So I think I shared actually what my income numbers were. So when I moved to Ireland, it was basically the point 2017 when I became self-employed. And I suppose, just for context, my journey was it's been quite slow, quite gradual, quite sustainable. I certainly am not one of those people, if you are looking for the get rich in 100, get 100 grand in 90 days kind of people. That is definitely not me. I moved to Ireland in 2017. I still picked up a lot of contract work and work in the music industry, which is where I was moving from. And I did that all through the second half of 2017, all through 2018. And it wasn't until the end of 2018 where I quit the kind of regular contract work and tried to start picking up my own work all through 2019. So that's where the kind of shifts and changes and moving from 0 to 50 came from, where I was actually starting to make money in my coaching business. And then this next step, so I suppose 2019, I think my overall income was about 24k. And that was a mix of coaching, mentoring, income, and retreats that I was running, and also music contract jobs. And then the next step then was 2020, when I went full in, nothing, leaving behind all the music industry stuff, partly by design, but also partly by necessity, because we know what happened in 2020. Everybody went into lockdown and the music industry was absolutely decimated in terms of live performances. The part of the sector that I was in the end was international touring, and I feel very grateful really that I got out when I did, and started building something for myself when I did, because there was obviously no international touring, certainly not the touring I was doing to China in 2020. So that was a kind of point of necessity really. And I guess the things I talked about in that first video were that 0 to 50. So what I was doing kind of alongside, side hustling other contract work, other stuff that was coming in to kind of make ends meet, I suppose, actually get myself some money. And 2020 was the year that things really changed. And I think 2020 was an 82k turnover year. So really this is the period that I'm talking about now, where things changed from, it's kind of ticking over, it's working okay, I'd like it to earn a little bit more, but I don't really know what to focus on, to, okay, I think I get this now. I think I know how to scale this up and earn slightly more money and slightly more turnover and take turnover from it. I just to be totally again clear, because I know people talk about these numbers and it's lovely to have them bandied around like, oh great, Vicky that year got 82 grand in her pocket. No, Vicky did not get 82 grand in her pocket. She turned over and brought in 82 grand, but a lot of that was also invested back in the business, and I will talk about that and kind of what I was spending and who I was investing in and who was helping me to achieve that. I can't remember because that was that was a year still, I was still sole trader at that point. So I will have taken home, obviously, I would have paid myself. I say obviously, but it should be obvious to you if you want to be thinking like a breadwinner, that I took home some of that. I took some of that as a salary effectively. I withdrew money on a monthly basis. But I can't remember off the top of my head. If it's of interest to you, then drop me a direct message and I'll try and get back to you as to exactly how I did that. It's a question I get asked a lot. How did you work out what to pay yourself? I think a lot of people earn money through their business and then feel very scared to take it, to spend it, because I think there's not that trust there that you're going to continue to earn it. And that's the point I think we need to get to, where you are spending and investing in your business, but also spending the money that you are earning as well. Hi, Ellen. Spending the money you're earning on yourself, that you are deserving of that, and in the full trust that you will continue to earn. That if I buy myself a nice pair of shoes, or if I buy myself a handbag I want, or if I invest in something for the house, that I fully trust that the next month and the next month and the next month, I'm going to continue to earn that money. Then it's not gone. It hasn't disappeared. I think that's definitely where my mindset's changed around money over the last few years, in terms of that real abundant sense of there is more coming. The money will keep coming. I know how to do this now. And I think definitely 2020 for me, coming to the end of that year, the real realization for me was I've learned how to sell. I've learned how to earn money. And I don't actually, like, if nothing else changes, that is a skill that's going to be staying with me and that I've really taken from that year. And like I say, I stayed in this phase of 50 to 100 for 2 years. So 2020 and 2021 were, I think, 82k and 94 or something around that turnover wise. I put that down to having a baby in 2020 and not being able to fully market myself and be present in business in the same way. And that is, we've just had someone actually join Just Start Now and said, oh, I don't think it was a very good business decision of mine to have a baby. I don't want anyone to think that I had my baby and thought it was a bad business decision. Definitely wasn't a bad business decision. It just changed things in my business and how I was earning money. And if you set yourself up right, I don't think I was set up quite early enough to take advantage of it. So it definitely, I think, I don't want to say held me back, but it just changed what I was able to do and where I was putting my attention. But I think you can prepare yourself for that when you are going to have a baby, and know that you can't show up and be visible and give your time in quite the same way that you could pre-children, or pre the number of children that you're going into. Okay. Just to also, I suppose, caveat this with what I'm talking about, like I've just said, is the period 2020 and 2021. This was for me when I was moving from 50 to 100, like I say, this kind of period. That was, as we all know, a slightly weird time in the world, which actually, and I feel like some of us feel very embarrassed and very ashamed to say that actually, whilst 2020 and 2021 were really, really tough for a lot of people, tough to the point of not being on this planet anymore, kind of tough. So I'm not, absolutely not taking away from how difficult and traumatic and the kind of ripple and knock-on effect that's happened as a result of what happened through COVID and through lockdowns globally. However, there are some of us for whom the pandemic and lockdowns actually worked quite well for our businesses, actually benefited us in the sense that there was a lot of attention online. So those of us who had positioned ourselves well online and were already kind of building and growing an audience, which I talked about a lot when that 0 to 50 period, were quite well positioned to take advantage of that. We already knew the technology, we had the platforms, we had the start of the audience, we had a start of a reputation. And for me, certainly, I felt like pre-2020, I was battling with this idea to get people to understand that they could step into their nutrition business, step into their personal training business, step into their yoga business if they wanted. And they were clinging on to the safe job, the secure job, the corporate package, which suddenly, as we know, in 2020, absolutely was blown to pieces with a complete lack of security in those things. And that was that real realization when we were at home and not doing the commute and not doing, the grind of that work or being on furlough, that actually there was space and time and money actually sometimes as well, because we weren't able to go anywhere or do anything, and we weren't buying Starbucks on our commute every day, and we couldn't go on holiday, to invest in ourselves and to have a look at this a little bit more. So that did benefit me. That isn't to say that everything that I'm going to talk through wouldn't work in another period, but for me it just coincided with a real drive and attention, I think, to the kind of things that I always talk about in terms of being your own boss, running your own business, following what you do and all the amazing knowledge that you have and turning that into an income. There was a lovely kind of attention and buzz around that in 2020 and 2021. And I'm going to say lovely buzz. There was a lovely buzz in some areas. Hey, Kate. And then some people were using it to prey on people, I guess, and market to them in a way that was less than lovely. But that is a story for another day. So I'm going to talk about how I moved then from that 50k to more closer to 100k year turnover income. And I'm again going to go through my 5 pillars. So I'm going to talk through clarity. I'm going to talk through the packages, what I was offering. I'm going to talk through my sites and what I was doing with my website and mailing list. I'm going to talk about connection, what I was doing to build connection and market myself. I'm just going to have a look at the kind of mindset things that I was doing as well. If you have any questions at all, I know most people will probably watch this on the replay, but if you're here live and you're able to just interact, then please do pop anything in the comments, ask away, because I'm very happy to answer. So the clarity piece then for me with your business is always around your kind of goal setting and also your ideal clients as well. This phase for me didn't change who I was trying to market to and who I wanted to help. I'd done that work. I did that work. I got help and advice on how to do that work. I understood the value of doing that work in that first 0 to 50 phase. That actually hadn't changed and didn't change through this phase, and actually hasn't really been updated and changed until much more recently now. I guess for me, the clarity piece in this phase between 50 and 100 was really setting myself and believing in much more expansive goals for myself and what was possible. And really that looked like stepping into circles and communities and masterminds where I was in touch with people who were making a lot more money than I was, and were role modeling to me what that looked like, how that could be done. And I invested, so I'm just touching in some of the things I put in mindset, in a much higher level coaching, business advice container at that point. I went to an event in January 2020 and was like, yeah, I am ready to up level this now. I can keep it ticking over. I can do those 3, 4, 5 grand months myself, but I need this I want this. I have the drive and the ambition for this to go to another level, and so I wanted to surround myself really with other people that were doing it, so that I had that evidence and I could learn from them. And I think the biggest realization, that kind of mindset shift and change that I had when I first sat in that room with that mastermind that I joined, so we started in February 2020, was everyone was going around the room talking about their business, sharing a problem with the group, and just realizing we're all the same. We're all having exactly the same questions, the same wobbles, the same worries, the same difficulties. It's just, so and so over there is earning 100 grand or 150 grand or 250 grand in her business, and I'm still here just earning 40 grand, 50 grand, I think 22 grand the year before. So I was like, wow, that lovely, really actually reassuring realization that they're all just humans, just like me. We're all figuring it out. This is something I wrote in my article for Image magazine recently. This idea that we think people who are earning that kind of money, that it's not available to you, they're somehow different from you. They're not. They're exactly the same as you. They're having the same doubts, the same wobbles, the same worries. It's just that they've got they're further ahead than you, and they've got certain infrastructure different, like, set up from you, from where you are. And I'm going to come on to like what that kind of setup is, and also just that their mindset's different, just that what they believe and what they know is possible for them and available to them, and what they are like willing to aspire to and go for is different from where you are. And sometimes they've just done that work. They're a bit further ahead on that work than you are. It's absolutely available. They're all just humans, just like you, just like me. So that was a big part of the clarity piece. I guess the other big part in the clarity piece, for me around this time, moving from 50 to closer to 100 grand, was letting go of other things that were getting in my way and distracting me, from the work I really wanted to do and that I really wanted to take off. And I feel this is sometimes a really tricky point for people, where we want to hold on. And I was talking about this with the kind of pandemic realization. We want to hold on to the things that feel safe, that feel secure, that we've got into the habit of doing, that do earn us a bit of money, that we don't want to let other people down. And actually, I guess it's coming back to that real honesty and realization of what is it that I really want, and do I really believe that that is possible for me. So actually, I feel like this period, moving from 50 to 100k years, was letting go of and stopping doing the things that were distracting me. Hey Jenny. That were distracting me. And for me, that was two things, both of which, again, I engineered and wanted to let go of, and also just by design and the fact that it was the pandemic, I was forced to let go of, or I guess I could have carried on if I'd really wanted to, but kind of used it as a natural excuse to let go, which was my music work. I just was no longer taking on any contracts, and certainly not like looking at the idea of part-time work or anything like that, actually actively saying no to that. And then naturally it stopped anyway, because there was no live performances happening after March 2020 anyway. And also the retreats that I had been running, alongside a nutritionist, and that we had been running those for 2.5 years. And I tell this story quite a lot. The very last in-person retreat we ran was in 2020, and we ran it in Portugal from the 12th to the 17th of March 2020. And I bet you can imagine what we were like, hanging on, watching the news constantly, because we left on the day to go to Portugal that the WHO announced that COVID was a pandemic, and we arrived back into Ireland on the day that certainly Ireland went into lockdown. So I think we got out of the country and got back into the country. Luckily, there was very, very little COVID at the time in Portugal. Certainly on the Algarve, there were no cases at all. We were luckily able to go ahead with the retreat, but we literally got back into the country in the nick of time. I think if that retreat had been even 1, 2, 3 days later, we might have had a serious financial hole on our hands, having to give people money back, and issues, but luckily we didn't. And actually that for me was the closing of a bit of a door on that, of moving on. We could have continued it and continued doing it online, but I really felt where my passion was, where my interest was, where I actually really cared deeply about the people I wanted to help, was through my coaching, through my mentoring. And it felt like a natural segue to kind of move away from doing those retreats, because we couldn't do things in person anymore. I had also found out around that time that I was pregnant as well. So again, it felt like a kind of natural, like, I need to let go of things. I can't do everything. And so that kind of natural shedding was happening around that time as well. So that's the kind of clarity piece. If we look at the packages and like what I was offering around that time to move from that 50 to 100k, I think that was that realization, certainly sat in that event I was talking about in January 2020, where there is only so much you can do. And I talked about this in the first video, that 0 to 50k year, where I'm doing time for money exchange. Here is some money from my customer. Here is my time that I am giving you and my expertise. And that I'm not ashamed to say that's how the business got started. And a lot of people sell this kind of idea of passive income, and I wasn't doing that when I got started. And that was, I was fine with that. I was good with that. But to move to that next higher level of income, I did have to start thinking about other income streams, creating other containers or whatever you want to call them, to bring in other sources of income that didn't require me there on a video call. And again, with the pregnancy, it felt like a kind of push and a shift towards, you are going to have to find another way of bringing in income or bringing in more income if that's what you want, in a way that doesn't require you to be on Zoom calls 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, which was the point that it got to, certainly by the middle of 2020. And so I did two things, I suppose, in tandem. With the one-to-one work, I increased my prices. And to be honest, again, with the confidence and the boosting of working with a mentor, with a mastermind, seeing what other people did, that they increased quite drastically, actually. So where I had been charging kind of 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200 to work with me for 6 months, I designed a 90-day program, and that was 2.5 grand. So you can see, like, immediately there was a way to earn a lot more money, simply because I was like, right, if this is what I'm being told, I'm following the program, I'm going to increase my price of what I do, value myself more, and the people that I'm going to work with are going to be on this program instead. And certainly with the pregnancy, 90-day programs, I could only fit so many people in before I went off in the autumn to have maternity leave and to have my daughter. So increasing and just owning those prices, knowing that I had been in the business by that point for a couple of years, and really saying, this is what I do, getting really good at articulating that and explaining what I did, and saying, if I want to earn good money doing this and that exchange for my time, that has to come at a certain price. And then, like I say, I had to also realize that I needed to create other containers that were going to earn me income as well. So when the pandemic hit, I created a membership, I suppose, effectively. It was kind of it was an accountability group. It was a small group of us, 15 of us, 10, 15, 12, 15 people. I just had a weekly call. I did absolutely no prep. There were no bells, no whistles, no courses, no content, nothing snazzy. It was literally, hello, we meet on a Monday. How are you? What do you want help with? What are you going to get done this week? Cool. We'll check in again next week. And it didn't even have a community or anything. I think we just have a little Instagram chat group, and that was about it. And I charged £15 a month for that, €15 a month for that. And that was effectively the very start of my Just Start Now community, course and community, and where I grew it all from. So again, it was starting small, testing it, seeing what people needed and wanted. We were all in lockdown, stuck staring at screens anyway. So that was a good time to kind of create a community like that. And actually, I suppose, touching into that connection piece, I was running, kind of coffee mornings and free webinars and things to direct eyes to what I was doing, and basically had that as the starter of a container, which then I could grow and increase the price of later in the year. So from a €15 a month membership, I then moved in kind of March, April time when I launched that. I then, by September, October, when I was heading off onto maternity leave, re-released that as a membership at €97 a month instead, and got people into that, and kind of shifted and did say for the founder members, if they paid €15 a month, they could stay on that if they wanted to stay part of the community, which was obviously great value for them. And we kind of then could grow it from there. So basically creating a container that allowed me to show up once a week, but for a whole group, and then I could slowly add things to it. It was not just me exchanging my time for money and supplying one-to-one services. I was still doing that, but at a higher price, and then adding this in as an option as well. Just having a look, make sure I've covered everything there. Yeah. So the next pillar for me is always that kind of your sites. What I was doing on my website and my mailing list. So my website, I was continuing to maintain and grow myself. I was always adding blogs there. I started my podcast in 2019. So that was another kind of connection piece there, kind of sharing content. And really, I was just repurposing the blog content that I had created and turning that into podcast episodes. So that was another way of reaching and marketing myself, but again, repurposing the kind of content that I was already creating, just in a different format. And I love podcasting, absolutely love it. It's such a good way to get the content out there and get people to feel like they know you. So that was going through 2020 as well, and again, handy while everyone was in lockdown. So in terms of my website, I was, like I say, continuing to maintain it and run it myself, adding blogs and adding podcast episodes onto there. And I did at that point, I think 2021 was the first time that I invested real money, not just the skills exchange that I was talking about when I first got started, 2018, 2019, where I did a skills exchange. I'll coach you, you give me photos. I actually paid and invested in photos. It's really interesting. I did a call with someone recently who said she kind of watches and saw that I do photo shoots, I suppose, effectively. Once a year I go and get some new brand like headshots and photos that I can use on my social media and websites. And that was the first year, like I say, 2021, where I invested in that. And so, yeah, someone recently just saying, gosh, well, how much money does she make so that you can go off to do photo shoots? Again, for me, it's prioritization. I don't feel like I'm a hugely rich person. I don't feel like I have money to spare to spend on these things, but it's a priority for me. If I want to be taken seriously and earn good money and expect people to pay me, and at the time it was €2,500 to come and work with me one-to-one, I think my photos and my website need to reflect that level of how seriously I'm taking myself, how seriously I take them, how seriously I take the work that I do. And then it reflects the kind of level of like an up leveling of professionalism and where I want to be seen and how I want to be viewed. So investing in professional photos was really important. And actually that was very kind of vulnerable, I guess, at the time. I got my photos done in April 2021 and I'd had Una in November 2020. So I was still very much, in the first 6 months after having a baby. Certainly didn't feel like I was, looked glamorous, wasn't, there's a lot of that kind of insecurity, which I think a lot of us have, whether we're postpartum or not. But again, realize that visibility piece, being seen, having my face very clearly on my website and on my social profiles was really important to people feeling like they trusted and they knew me and that they would actually wanted to come and work with me. I'm also thinking, I think that was actually also the point where I invested in my branding as well. So again, that kind of, for me, coming back after having Una and knowing 2021 for me was like, okay, we're going to up level this thing. I want the whole feel. If I want to be earning between 50 and 100 grand, not just not to 50, I want the whole thing to up level. So the photos and the branding were things that were investments. Like I say, I didn't feel like I had spare money to do it, but I felt like they were a priority for me so that my business had a certain feel, had a certain professionalism and a certain elevation of where I wanted it to be and how I wanted people to feel when they came into my space. So those were things that I chose to invest in. Like I say, wasn't like the money was sloshing around the place. It was what I chose to invest in. And it's the same thing I always say, I can't afford that. No, let's change that with, it's not a priority right now. Is it a priority for you to be viewed in that way and to have that level of professionalism? If it's not, fine, there'll be something else that's a priority for you. But for me, it was. So the photos and the new branding for me came in this period between where, certainly with the branding, I'd done it all myself, like literally the colors, the fonts, the graphics, everything. I'd done it myself. Good old Canva, 0 to 50 grand. That's where I was doing it. 50 to 100 grand, I paid someone. So I don't think you need to, you can, but I don't think you need to in that initial period. You need to get, I told you all the things that I think you should focus on in 0 to 50, but 50 to 100 for me was where I up leveled that branding and the photos. I was also growing the mailing list at that time, adding freebies, more freebies. So I talked about creating one when I got started. I was starting to create more things, more ways that people could come and join my mailing list, knowing that mailing list was going to be really crucial for me. So I was creating other downloads, other checklists, other ways for people, again, running webinars and things to grow that mailing list so that I could have people to talk to and to sell to as well. Coming then finally onto that kind of connection piece, that marketing piece, I was, like I've mentioned a few times, running free webinars through that time. Again, we had a lot of attention. I think things have definitely changed, but we had a lot of eyeballs at that time because we didn't have anywhere to go physically out of the house, largely in 2020 and 2021. And so we was running free webinars and free challenges and things online, again, to grow the mailing list and to just get seen by people. We couldn't do it outside, so we had to be doing it online. And so that was me, like, getting in front of people as much as possible, drive eyes to what I was doing and what I was capable of, and then always directing into an offer, whether that was the Just Start Now community, whether that was working with me one-to-one, like really unashamedly saying, this is where, hey Natasha, this is where the next step is for you if you want to come and work with me, or keep, if you've enjoyed this, imagine what you could get if you came to work with me. And ultimately just saying yes to lots of guest opportunities and speaking, saying yes if people invited me onto their podcast, seeing where my ideal clients were hanging out and pitching myself to go and speak on those podcasts, or go and do a talk, or go into that community and offer training to those certain groups of people. Really just being that yes man, just being like, yes, absolutely, I will show up, I will go to those spaces, I will, I just want to be seen, I want to be as visible as possible, and really, like I say, getting in front of people as much as I could. Just checking the mindset points. Oh, okay. So I've talked about investing in that kind of higher level coaching, business advice, hanging around in those spaces, engaging fully. And again, I said this in the 0 to 50 video, and I'm saying it in the 50 to 100. If you join a community, you damn well take responsibility and you do everything. I turned up for the calls. I followed the instructions. I worked through the resources. I asked for advice. I asked good quality questions. I, took notes. I worked out what the gaps were and asked that room full of people, what would you do here? How can you help me? What would you, what advice have you got for me? What do you think about this? So that if I'm not just spending the money, and the investment certainly in 2020 was not insignificant. If I earned 82 in that year 2020, I was spending 1,200 every month just to be part of that mastermind, part of that community. So another 12, 14 grand going out on that, I was damn well going to follow through and take action and take the advice that I was being given, which I definitely think translated then into that increased confidence and seeing those results, because I was following, listening to myself, learning what I liked and what I didn't, taking the bits that were relevant to me, but actually acting. If that stretching of the comfort zone piece was really, really important to me. The other thing that was happening around this time, before I finished, because I've waffled on for half an hour this time, was hiring help. Putting a call out there. I think I just did it on my Instagram originally and just said, I need a virtual assistant, really. There were things that were starting to get to my business again between the 0 to 50 stage, where I was doing everything myself. I was willing to do it myself. I was bootstrapping everything. I was scheduling and writing all my own content and my emails. I was obviously delivering all the coaching. I was designing everything, like I said, all my branding. I was doing all my bookkeeping myself, all of that kind of stuff. This next phase, I was hiring help. So I was working out systems for doing things, and then I was basically outsourcing those things. And again, small amounts, a couple of hours a week, 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week, whatever it was, slowly growing that into a job and finding ways to systematize those things and then hand them over to someone else. Certainly the podcast production is a great example. I produced that whole thing. I recorded that whole thing. I edited the whole thing. I uploaded the whole thing. I did the whole thing myself for 2 full seasons. So I knew exactly how to do it. And then I outsourced. I found someone else during 2020 and 2021 that could edit it for me, and then eventually outsourced as well. Like uploading and writing the show notes and doing all of those things as well. So now we have a system and a flow. So I did it all myself, bootstrap in the 0 to 50, and then the 50 to 100 was outsourcing. And again, that's not spare money. That's not money that was like, oh, right, I've got so much money now, I'm going to invest in someone to help me do that. It was a priority. Is this me staying in my zone of genius if I am editing the podcast and uploading it myself? No, it's mind-numbingly, boringly repetitive tasks that I don't need to be doing. I want to be recording the stuff. That's my zone of genius, and then outsourcing it to someone else. And so getting into that mindset of, if I am to grow this income, I have to get help. I cannot do everything myself. And certainly for me, having a baby in the mix of that as well was another reminder that I just couldn't do everything. There's a question that has come in via Facebook. Terry has asked, what's the name of the mastermind I was in? Interesting. So the mastermind that I was in is a container that no longer exists anymore. It was Susie Ashworth's very, very first freedom experience that she called it, and she's closed it since. And it was a very small group of us, 15, 16 of us. And the container changed drastically after I joined it. But when we first joined it, it was really wonderful and really, really helped me. Terry has also said that's smart to create a low-cost check-in Q&A offer so that you get a taste for your coaching as a precursor to launching another program. Gave you warm leads to launch to the program too. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of emphasis again that people jump on this idea that, okay, we need passive income, that we need group containers, that we need one-to-many, that we need to stop trading time for money. I agree with that to an extent. You can see that that is what I did to move to that next level of income. But we need to not do that in a silo and do like create, oh, well, so-and-so's done this and so-and-so's done this, so I'll create this thing over here. We need to do it in collaboration with other people and test it and try it out and see what people actually need, rather than assuming that you can go away and create the perfect 6-week group program without actually talking to people, testing things out, doing beta runs, trying things in smaller, different formats. I think we all put this pressure on ourselves that we're going to be like, right, to get to 50 to 100, I'm going to create the perfect membership or group program. You won't. Mine's still not perfect either. I'm constantly evolving and changing it, but we just have to start somewhere. And the best way to do that is to keep talking to people about what they need from you. I am going to wrap it up there. I can't see any other questions that have come in anywhere else. If you have got any questions while you've been listening, or if you've listened to the whole 36 minutes of this on replay, I'm very happy to answer in the direct messages. I will try and bring up the balls to do another one of these next week on where I'm at now. My income last year was 132, 134 turnover. Half of that was take home salary. And I'm projecting to try and make 150. Ideally, I'm projecting, like I'm kind of setting myself the goal of more than that, in the hopes that it will fall certainly solidly at the top end of 100 to 150. So I'll just share really honestly next time where I'm at, what I'm focusing on, what I'm doing, what I'm changing, if that would be of interest. I'm very happy again to answer any questions, and I would rather that I definitely don't want it to look like, oh, this is what I did, so you should do it. I'm very happy to share like the journey of what I'm doing, which is what I feel like I have always done. And I'm very happy to be open and honest. And anyone that comes inside Just Start Now knows, they can see I've literally broken it down and shown you the exact numbers and exactly how I did it and what I focused on, and give very honest overview of where money comes in, where money goes out, how I pay myself, and all of that kind of stuff. One of the questions just come in from Ellen there on Instagram. How do you set up your weekly calendar between working in and working on the business? So this is a great question. And I feel like this is a constant question of like, how do we organize ourselves? I now block client weeks and admin weeks. I find it very difficult to focus on getting any of that on the business stuff where I'm forward planning or doing any of the kind of bigger like marketing pieces or getting myself ahead when I'm trying to help clients and working, because even if I've got 1 or 2 calls during the day, it's just that distraction. So time blocking, I guess, is the answer, Ellen, to that. It's trying to find large chunks where I can. Again, certainly when I had a baby, there was this real conception of, oh, you just fit your business in tiny little windows. No, you can do lots of things in tiny little windows, but there's some stuff that just takes big chunks of time. So really prioritizing and organizing what that is, and making sure key things that need to get done, like checking in on goals, bookkeeping, if that's something, accounting that needs to be done, content planning, get dedicated time, ideally leaving the house, going somewhere different. I try and do that once a quarter, come away from the house, go and book myself into a hotel or go to a different space and go, right, leaving the emails, leaving the social media, leaving the client notes, and just planning, like, what do I want to be doing? How does that look across the next 90 days, 6 months, next year? So time blocking, I think, is probably the answer to that, on a weekly basis, looking at clients or admin as much as you can. I know you're running a gym and there's lots of classes and things to be doing, but trying to find where you can pull out and get a good block of time, I would suggest, is probably my best advice on that. Okay, I'm going to finish because now we're almost at 40 minutes. Like I say, I'll come on next week and share a little bit more about the season that I'm in the next 100 to 150. If you've got any questions at all, very happy to answer, to have chats in the direct message. Come and have a talk with me. This is something I'm want to empower all of you with, in terms of knowing how to make good money in your business, and take home good money in your business so you can be a breadwinner. Have a lovely weekend. I'm going to end it there and I'll have a chat with you in the direct messages. Goodbye.